Welcome back. This is chapter 12 of If Nobody Cares, I Do by ByWicked666. Um, the thing is, I've already accidentally deleted this audio twice after already going over and deleting all the mistakes. So this time, it's just gonna be unedited. Thanks. Enjoy. Who the fuck names their kid Harold? Attack on your left side. Quickly, what do? Old man yells, and he hits the training dummy hard right in the middle of its chest. Now look what you did. You didn't keep your guards up and he stabbed you right in your right side, and you died. The old man yells, and Izuku groans and starts again. Katsuki snorts and tries to hold in a laugh, which obviously doesn't go unnoticed. Lift your knees, shithead. This ain't ballet camp. The old man yells at Katsuki, who's jumping around in the track. Katsuki glares at him, but the old fucker didn't even bat an eye. They've been training every day for almost half a year. The summer came and went, and the fall was nearly over and turning into a cold winter. The training had been hard, and every day was even more exhausting than the day before. And still, at the same time, it felt great. Katsuki's always liked sports where he can test his limits and push beyond them, but martial arts has been his favorite ever since the first lesson with the old fart. Not because of him, though. He can go fuck himself. Katsuki thinks, and tries to focus on not tripping over his own feet. Again! The old fuck yells, even before he finishes the track. Sadistic prick. The old man turns back to yell at Izuku about his posture. Katsuki was really surprised by how quick the nerd learned all this shit. Maybe even more when he saw the grenade still standing. I bet he's doing it because he's too stubborn to stay down. He was sweating his ass off, black shirt plastered on his chest, and he was panting like he'd just had an asthma attack. Every time he fell down, he somehow got the strength to drag himself back up. Sure, by the time they got off, he was barely standing, and sometimes Katsuki had to carry half of his weight on their way home when the boy was tripping over his own feet, but he never once complained about how hard the training was. There wasn't even a hint of doubt that the nerd would give up if given the chance to. Katsuki watches his friend get in the position again. His face is glistening with sweat as he wipes it on his shirt. Gross. Looks like it's laundry day soon. Damn, his kids get sharper every day. Katsuki couldn't afford to sit on his ass when there's a stubborn little broccoli after him. He makes his way to the punching bags and loses himself in his training routine. He's done this many times before, and he's noticed that the old man definitely doesn't bother him with Izuku. And he's noticed that the old man definitely doesn't bother him as much as he does Izuku. Maybe it's because he's been on the streets longer? Well, whatever. He's not gonna settle on being mediocre. He's gonna be the best, and he's gonna protect Izuku. And who knows? By the way the nerd is evolving, maybe he'll let him protect him too. He tisks at the thought. Okay, that's it for today. Clean this shit up and head to the showers, the old man says and claps his hand. Izuku drops onto his knees, gasping for air. The old man has already started walking away when he suddenly stops and turns around to yell. Green shit! Izuku startles and jumps up. Yes, sir? He squeaks, and Katsuki snorts at the sound. Good work today. You're tiny, but you're fast, and you still have shitty stamina, but it's getting better. Your kicks still lack of power, so you should focus on that. He doesn't wait for them to respond as he walks away. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Izuku yells and bows down. He has the most adorable smile on his face. It makes Katsuki smile. He hopes his nerd will get better soon so they can start to fight actual villains. Wait, his nerd? He must have hit his head at some point during training today. He shakes his head like it's gonna make the thoughts go away. Get up, nerd, the man is gone. Katsuki says a little too harshly. Luckily, Izuku doesn't notice anything. They clean up and as quickly as their sore bodies will let them and head to the showers. Katsuki smacks Izuku in the back of his head as he almost walks into a wall on their way. Dumb fuck would probably get killed in the streets if they would start their vigilante shit right now. It was a good rule to get fit before getting out there, Katsuki thinks, and mentally high-fives himself. He might be young, but he isn't stupid. He looks at Izuku, who looks dead on his feet, the exhaustion pouring out of him. The nerd needs better stamina if he's gonna keep up with him. Hey shithead, come here, the old man yells from his office. Katsuki sighs and turns around. Don't ask him how he knows the old bat is talking to him. He just does. Go ahead and try not to drown yourself in the showers while I'm gone, he says to Izuku, who mumbles something along the lines of, Okay, Kacchan. Katsuki smiles and shakes his head. What a fucking weirdo. So, what do you need me for? Katsuki asks and drops in the chair in front of the old man's desk. Besides seeing each other almost every day for years now, they rarely talk to each other, especially with other matters besides training. And Katsuki has a gut feeling that this has nothing to do with their training. Don't get cocky with me, you little shit, the old man says. The man was well over his 60s, but Katsuki knew that even if he was using his explosions, they would have done nothing against the man. Not that he would be willing to try. Katsuki looks around the office. He never really looked around since it didn't seem important. There's an old run-down couch, a couple of chairs besides his current one, and a desk that is so unorganized that Katsuki's hand starts to twitch in the need to organize it. Who the fuck can work in that sort of chaos? There is a couple of shelves filled with trophies and books and sports medicine. The trophies look like they're from martial arts, but he's too far to see from what and whose name is on them. He was about to ask about them when the old man interrupts him. So, we've known each other on some level for a long time, wouldn't you say? The old man starts as he crosses his hands over his chest. Weird, but okay. Sure, whatever. And? Katsuki says and narrows his eyes. The old fart was up to something. He was sure of it. I've noticed that you and the other shit had been running around in odd hours. I assume you have no family? He asks. That makes Katsuki immediately tense. Was it that obvious? And so what if they didn't? He sure as fuck didn't need the people who treated him worse than a gum on the bottom of their shoe. He had learned to take care of himself since the day he was born, and he was going to do it that way until the day he would die. And that would be nobody's business but his own. He took too long to answer. Not that he was gonna answer anyway, when the old man continues. I thought as much, so it's safe to assume that you also don't have a place to stay either, the old man asks. He looks at Katsuki like he's trying to assess the situation, like when or if he was gonna bolt. Maybe he wasn't all muscle after all. What's it to you? Katsuki asks, crossing his own hands over his chest. He really doesn't like it when other people try to poke into his business, and all these questions are starting to annoy him. Sure, the old man has been nothing but nice to them, but Katsuki also knows that nice people can change in the blink of an eye. Not that he believes that the old man would. Maybe. Don't get defensive of me, you little fucker. I wanted to get you caught. If I wanted to get you caught, I would have called the cops on you a long, long time ago. The reason why I'm asking is that I've got an offer for you, and your joined twin there, Katsuki says, pointing at the door. Katsuki narrows his eyes. Get to the point, would you? Katsuki growls. I've got a room in the back of the gym. Or more like, on it. There's an attic above the gym. It's dusty as fuck, and I'm sure as fuck not gonna climb in there. There might be some repairs that need to be done, and it's most likely filled with all sorts of crap since the last owner was a pig. But it's yours if you want it, the old man says. What's the catch? Katsuki asks. No catch. You need to clean it and fix it yourself. Of course, I would pay for the materials that you would need to fix it, and all that I ask is that you clean after yourself and keep quiet about living there. I can't have the cops questioning me about why I've not reported two underage children living in there. You could also use the kitchen and the staff room when there's no one here, and you already shower here. If there's suddenly a huge spike on the electricity bill, we might need to discuss some sort of payment, but somehow I doubt that either of you would use that much power. The old man responds. Kotsky is staring at the man. What was his deal? No one offers anything for free, and he's known this man for a long time. Why now? Like he could read his thoughts, the man answers. Because you need it. When I first saw you, you were fucking tiny, but from the first look I knew you were gonna be a huge pain in my ass. I was worried, but you have a great quirk on you. I also hoped that you would either find yourself back home, or eventually find a new home. No kid deserves to live on the streets. But like the stubborn fuck you've always been, you're still here, and now you've got someone to protect too. So I'm trying to offer you something to help you out. Not because I pity you. It's because I can see the potential in both of you. So that's why. Kotsky was doing the math. It would be great to not have to hide all their shit around town and hope that anything isn't stolen when they next go there. And a roof over their head would be great since the fall is almost over. But also, this isn't his decision alone. Can I get back to you on that? Kotsky asks. The old man nods and points at the bag by the door. I'm leaving, so you boys lock up and take that shit with you. Kotsky stops by the door with a bag in his hand. Without turning around, he knocks on the door twice before he walks away. Izuku is leaning over the shower when he gets there. He looks like he might have fallen asleep while standing. Kotsky barks at the nerd to say bleh. Kotsky barks at the nerd to stay away, and it startles him enough to finish washing up. They grab their stuff and lock the door. On their way home, Kotsky is so lost in his thoughts that he doesn't hear Izuku talk to him. Kachan! Izuku yells, and Kotsky jumps and almost drops the bag of food. What, you fucker? He yells back. No way in hell he would admit that the nerd scared him. By the look on Izuku's face, he knows, but is actually smart enough to keep the information to himself. Izuku suddenly giggles. You sound like the old man. Fuck you, take that back. I sound nothing like that fucker. Kotsky says and kicks a rock at his feet. The evening is unusually peaceful. There are a few birds chirping around somewhere in the forest, and there's a faint sound of a car alarm farther into the city, but no humans in sight to disturb their walk. So, what did the old man want? Gosh, it feels so weird to call him that. What do you think his first name is? Gary? George? He looks like a Bart, but I don't think... Kotsky snorts and puts his hand on Izuku's mouth before he can get started on his mumbling. How about you try and breathe for a minute? What kind of name is fucking Bart? This is not an episode of The Simpsons. Kotsky says like the bad name suggestion has personally offended him somehow. I bet he's a Harold. Kotsky smirks and makes Izuku snort a laugh. Fucking Harold? And you make fun of my name suggestions. Whatever, fucker. Kotsky says and tries to body check Izuku in the nearest bush. Izuku dodges it. They bicker about the old man's name, about the old man's name until all the way to their trash tower. As they've settled down and are starting to eat, Izuku brings it up again. So, what did Harold want? Kotsky chokes and starts to cough. Izuku laughs as he hands him over a water bottle. Fucking nerd, are you trying to kill me with that shit? Kotsky asks after he stops coughing. His face is red as he stares daggers at the boy, who doesn't even bat an eye. Izuku keeps staring at him, still waiting for him to start talking. So he does. Izuku listens and asks a few questions on the way, but doesn't say anything. Kotsky can see the wheels turning in his head, turning as his lips move a million miles an hour with his quiet mumble. He knows better than to interrupt the nerd's thought process, so he eats and waits. About 10 minutes, After about 10 minutes, Izuku finally takes a breath. What do you think about the offer? What do you think about the offer? He asks carefully, like he expects Katsuki to blow up at him. Katsuki chews his food slowly before answering. I think if the old man wanted to hurt us, he would have done it by now. I mean, he still can, but let's be honest. This is probably the last summer we can both fit in this shithole, and it would be nice to have a roof over our heads and not need to worry about our shit getting stolen all the time. I don't completely trust that the offer comes without any expectations, but for now, it's our best option. Also, it's less of a risk to get caught and be taken to an orphanage or some shit. Katsuki glances at Izuku. The old man says that it might be full of crap, and there might be some things to fix up before we can move in there, but it's better than the streets, right? I think so too. For the time being, I think we should take the offer, or at least ask about it a little more. For now, we are on the same page, Izuku says. He is getting the determined look in his eyes that only promises trouble for the both of them. Katsuki sighs. Well, what else is new? Chapter 13. They wake up by a loud banging noise outside. Izuku opens his eyes just to see that the sun isn't even up yet. He drops his head back on his pillow and groans. What the fuck? Katsuki mumbles next to him while rubbing his eyes. His hair is spiking in all directions, and he has a little dried up drool on his face that makes Izuku chuckle. There's another loud bang outside. Trying to be as quiet as he can, he crawls by the door, peeking out the window. There's a little dark outside, and he's barely awake. The seagulls are screaming at the top of their lungs, and it makes it hard to locate the source of all the noise. Fucking flying rats. Not seeing anything, he starts to get annoyed. Sure, enough seagulls can't make that much noise, but then there's movement on the ground. There's a girl pulling some kind of carriage after her. She looks like she's probably around their age. She has shoulder-length cotton candy hair and some kind of goggles on the top of her head. She's wearing a black tank top and black jeans with black boots. Well, what's out there? Katsuki whispers as he crawls beside him. Izuku puts a finger in front of his lips and points at the girl. They watch as she picks up random items from the piles and then tries to squeeze them. She turns them around in her hands and bangs them on random surfaces. So that's the reason she woke them up in this ungodly hour. What the fuck is she doing? Katsuki whispers in his ears. His breath on his neck makes Izuku feel ticklish, and he lets out an unintentional gasp. Fuck. The girl's head snaps up to look at their direction when she hears the sound. Hello? Is anybody there? The girl yells, and both boys freeze. The sound came a lot closer than it's supposed to if she was still on the ground. She wouldn't come up here, right? The girl's head popped up behind the car window. Well, fuck them. Hello there, she says, smiling at them. She looks harmless, besides the fact that she's here at this hour. But Izuku has never been a good judge of character, so what would he know? Katsuki seems to think that way too when he pulls him behind him and turns to look at the girl. What the fuck do you want? He growls. Izuku peeks behind the blonde as he turns his hand to let out a small explosion for warning. Izuku peeks behind the blonde as he turns his hand to let out small explosions as a warning for the stranger to stay away. It doesn't quite work. The girl lets out a small squeak and opens the door and crawls inside. Wow, you have an explosion quirk? That's so cool. Do you also let out big explosions? How's your aim? What about your attack range? I bet it's tricky to get a hold of explosions since there's many things that could go wrong. There is fire for one, and there are many downsides with it, but oh man, there are so many possibilities. The girl speaks enthusiastically, and maybe a little loud. But she keeps moving her hands like she's building something as she mumbles to herself. It doesn't look like she expects any answers. Do I look like that when I mumble? Also, there could be potential to make some kind of devices to help with control. Do you have any support items? I can make you a baby if you want, the girl says, and her eyes start to shine when she stares at Kachan, waiting for his response. What? Kachan says and looks borderline murderous. If he's. He is, too, if he's honest. Who the fuck is this girl to be suggesting something like that to his Kachan? His? Now is not the time for that, Izuku thinks while shaking his head. Oh, sorry, not that kind of baby. I mean support item. I'm an inventor. Mei Hatsume, at your service, she says and holds out her hand. Katsuki looks at the hand, eyebrows raised. Izuku sighs. He knows by now that Kachan has no intentions of holding her hand. And she seems like a cool person. A little threatening. But he makes a decision and swallows his nerves as he crawls out and takes her by the hand. Hi, my name is Izuku. That growling blonde is Katsuki. Nice to meet you, he says and shakes her hand. He can feel Katsuki tensing behind him. He relaxes a little when Izuku lets go. Izuku's still sure that Katsuki is watching his every move, assisting the possible threats. He's protective like that. So, do you live here? Hatsume says and looks around. There's really not that much to look at. There's a few piles of comic books, their bags, and sleeping bags, and a plastic bag with leftovers from yesterday's dinner. Before he could answer, Katsuki does it for him. None of your fucking business, bitch, Katsuki says. Izuku rolls his eyes. Always grumpy and a little rude. So, is that what you were doing out there? Collecting materials for your support items? Izuku asks and points outside. Now the sun is quickly rising from the horizon, coloring the sky pink. Too bad they can't enjoy it when there's an intruder in their home. Oh yeah, there's so much cool stuff that people get rid of without thinking. I've found almost all my materials on places like this, Hatsume explains, and they get to talk about different support items. Well, thanks for having me, but I'm still in the middle of a search for a working car battery, so I gotta go. See you two around, and think about the offer about my babies, she says and points at Katsuki who tsks and looks away. Who tisks and looks away. Jesus. Izuku waves at the window and Katsuki pulls him down by his shirt and starts to yell at him. What the fuck was that, nerd? Why the fuck did you tell her our names? She was nice, Izuku argues like it would make anything better. He feels a little guilty for not asking Katsuki's permission about saying his name, but Hatsume seems harmless, and it wouldn't be too bad to have a friend in that field of work. Maybe she could even help him with some of the support items he was going to make by himself. Too soon to say they're friends, though, but it was a start. Maybe. If Kachan doesn't kill him before that. It doesn't matter if she's fucking nice or whatever. What if she calls the cops? Do you want us to get caught? Katsuki says and turns his back on him. All the color drains from Mizuku's face. No way in hell would he be separated from Katsuki. He might see the point of Katsuki's rage. Maybe he didn't really think things through before speaking. But no way in hell was he gonna admit that when Katsuki was pouting like a fucking child. Well, we decided to move yesterday, so it's not too big of a risk. And she could be a useful person to know. We both know that at least I will need some support items, and they're not cheap. Did you ever think about that? Izuku says and glares at Katsuki, who's now losing his defensive position. So what if she comes back? Katsuki says, clearly still mad. He has dropped his shoulders, and his breathing is more even than it was before. Izuku knows he's not forgiven, but it's a start. Well, we'll see, then, Izuku says and starts to pack his bag for the day. They, in fact, see Hatsume again. A lot. They're still living in the car. When they started to clear out the old man's attic, it became clear that it needed a little more work done than they originally thought. It would be a lot better than living outside, especially in the winter, so they did anything necessary without complaining. The floorboards were rotten and they needed to be fixed. Also, the old man wasn't exaggerating when he said there might be a lot of crap. There was some trash that smelled worse than some of the gym bags they've seen. There were also a few furniture pieces that needed a little fixing up, but were still useful to them. They also discovered that there was a small kitchen in there. They were not sure about the plumbing issues, but the old man said that he would call someone to make sure they still worked. If they continued to work like that if they continue to work like they have been so far, it would take them about a month to get everything ready for their move. Hatsume first visit first bleh. Hatsume's first visit was about a week ago, and ever since she came by a few times. Izuku Katsuki is still not trusting her and only answers her if necessary. Izuku, on the other hand, is getting along with her. He has discovered that she is the heir of a large tech company and has been building her babies ever since she was a baby. She's smart and she has absolutely no filter. Izuku often thinks that her brain goes a lot faster than her mouth. Izuku was carefully starting to feel around, and she would think about helping him with some support items he wants to get, but the world wo- the word careful was thrown right out the window when Izuku accidentally reveals that he's quirkless. Katsuki was not happy with him. Hatsume's yelling could be heard miles away. She was ecstatic. She immediately started to harass him about letting her take measurements on him and letting her make some amazing new babies. She rants, learning all about the new market crack, which apparently no one was using. It was obvious since there were only really small groups of people in Japan who were still quirkless. Still, the fact that Hatsume was already thinking about that before he mentioned it made Izuku like her even more. They spent a lot ti they spent a lot of time arguing about ideas for new support items. The one Izuku appreciates about his new friend is that she wasn't asking them about why they were there. They've not been talking about their backgrounds, and she's not asked. "Well, see you next week," she says when it's time for her to leave. Katsuki glances at her behind his comic book that he's been quietly reading in front of the car when they've been nerding around, like Katsuki always calls it. He says nothing and goes back to his book. Izuku smiles, shaking his head. He turns to Hatsume. "We might not be here by then," Izuku rushes to tell her, earning a glare from the blonde behind him. Hatsume doesn't miss a beat. "Okay, where are you going?" she asks. "We found a place nearby," is all that Izuku is willing to say. She might be nice, but he would be stupid to sell the old man out. He's helped them so much already. "Okay, you can tell me about it later if you want, and you know where to find me when I'm looking for supplies for my babies. However, if you need me in between that, this is where my lab is," Hatsume says and scribbles something on the piece of paper and hands it to Izuku. "Sure, see you around." She waves her hand at the door and starts to climb down when the door closes behind her. It's finally done! The attic is clean and the shiny new floorboards are in place. Who knew a couple of kids could make all this happen? The boys look around the place. This is gonna be our new home, Izuku thinks, and tries to surge the need to jump around like a little kid. He is a kid, though. Even if they built the place back up, it took a lot of asking advice from the old man and a lot of YouTube videos. Who knew fucking YouTube could be so useful? "Tomorrow we can bring our stuff, Kachan. We're gonna have a home. Aren't you excited?" Izuku screams and finally gives in to the urge to jump around Katsuki. The blonde is smiling at his enthusiasm. "Hell yeah, we do, nerd," Katsuki says and grabs him for a hug. Izuku sighs and presses his head at Katsuki's chest. The blonde squeezes him a little harder, and for a minute Izuku thinks he can hear his thoughts. "Although, I already feel at home whenever I'm with you." Alright, everyone, that is the end of chapter 12 through chapter 13, and that is the end of the fic entitled "If Nobody Cares, I Do" by ByWicked666. I don't know when the next chapter is going to come out, but this is an unfinished fic, which I did not check before making these. So I will post another video when the next chapter comes out, but until then I will be doing videos or podfics on another fic called Discriminating Taste. Anyway, sorry about taking so long to post this. Very big procrastinator. Bye.